All right. We are live.
Hello,
Oh,
hello, hello.
hello, hello. Hi, Dave. We're a few minutes late. Those of you waiting patiently for Dave and I to come online, you're rock stars. I know you've all been waiting in anticipation. We get that a lot. All right. So, welcome
I
back this.
think we're still waiting to go live on X.
Oh, yeah, I just refreshed. Hold on a sec. No, we're live. We are live.
Are we really?
We are. So this is our second kind of, we're doing bi-weekly AMAs now. This is the second one that we've kind of started doing in this format. So if you joined us last week, you got to ask Dave all your questions. I was on a plane back from Token 2049, but look, I'm back. I'm here. So make sure you guys, if you have questions and you haven't already asked them in advance, you can throw them into the comments here in Twitter, and we will answer as we go. All right. Dave, did we do like a dVIN intro on the last AMA, or are we expecting the people know
Yeah,
who
I
we
did a little intro, but like we can do something quick. But I mean, obviously, if people are coming to the AMA, then they probably know who we are. But I mean, we can start with a quick intro. Doesn't hurt.
Cool. All right. Well, first of all, I'm Jana Kreilein. I'm one of the co-founders of dVIN Labs. I've got a wine background, so certified wine nerd here. Kind of worked in every angle and part of the wine industry, from hospitality to winemaking, and did the SOM thing. So if you've got wine questions, you can throw them into the chat as well, or you can ask our AI. We'll talk a little bit about that too, because I know our AI has been answering some of your questions on X with a little bit of attitude. So he's he's already kind of done half the job for us here. But yeah, I'm joined by our conceptual founder, my co-founder, Dave Garrett. Dave, go for it. Intro time.
Hi. Well, thanks, Jana. I appreciate it. It's always nice to be here. I'm Dave Garrett, co-founder, CEO of dVIN Labs. I've been I'm like one of those weird tech and wine guys. Started a tech company, sold it, and then started a couple of different wine businesses. One in Argentina, one here in Spain, and and then a few years ago, kind of put those two passions together and started dVIN Labs, which our goal is to build the universal protocol to tokenize the $1 trillion wine asset class.
Boom. The T word.
Boom.
The T
Yeah.
word comes out hot. Yeah, it is a giant asset class, turns out. And there's about 300 to 350 billion of that is investment grade
Yeah.
wine. So that is a massive asset class. Dave, can you do your if you added up
Oh,
this
sure. So,
industry?
so, 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 we talk about asset class and we talk about wine. Let's talk about asset class first. So, asset class, there's about it. It really, it's kind of a third, a third, a third, right? There's a third in table wine, right? Wine that gets made and sold and consumed in the same, let's call it 12-month period, right?
That you're allowed to make sangria with.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like this is wine that's going in a bag or a box or a damajuana or sangria or a can. This is your everyday drinking wine. And that's $350 billion, and the turnovers every year, right? Then there's another, let's call it 350 billion, more or less, that is fine wine. So this is wine that is, typically aged for between 3 and 5 years. I think the average is about 3.5 years. So when you're opening a bottle of wine that and the vintage on that is like 2022 or 2023, or 2021, right? Like this is fine wine that has typically been in a barrel for a year or two. It's been, aged in a bottle for a year or two. This is your 20, 30, 40, $50 bottle of wine, something nice that you're opening at a restaurant or opening at a dinner party, or, if you're Jana, opening every night of the week. But like this is what's considered to be fine wine, right? Wine that's made, that has, there's a limited quantity that's made. It comes from, Bordeaux and Burgundy and California and, Italy and, South Africa, Chile, Argentina. Um, and 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 so the turnover on that's about 100 billion a year. But because it's stored for an average of 3.5 years, or aged for an average of 3.5 years, there's 350 billion that's in bottle at any given time, right? So there's wine from this that was bottled, last year. Or that's in the barrel that was harvested last year, and some of it's in the barrel that was harvested the year before, and some of it's in the bottle that was harvested the year before, and the year before that, and the year before that. So that's kind of fine wine. And then there's investment grade wine. And investment grade wine is wine that typically leaves the winery for between $100 and $200 a bottle. And then it'll change hands maybe every 4 years, 3.5 to 4 years, for 12 to 15 years before it's consumed. Every time it changes hands, it'll typically double in price. This is wine that's rare. And the turnover in that market is only about $10 billion a year. But because it's because it's aged for 15 years, and because it doubles in price every few years, that's another $300 billion asset class, right? So even though the turnover is relatively small, it's a relatively small volume. It's a big asset class. That's wine that it sits in a cellar, whether it's at the winery or with a negociant or at an importer or at a distributor, or sometimes with a merchant, or even like a collector, where it sits in your cellar for a long time, and then finally somebody opens it up when it's ready to drink.
Forced scarcity, huge asset class. I mean, these are wines that are really well made. These are the big names that if you've heard of Petrus and Lafite and all those kind of household big investment grade wine names. Those are the kind of wines we are talking about, and those are the kind of wines that we're really focused on tokenizing. So dVIN Labs, we are building the digital rails for this massive investment grade wine asset class. And we are basically, the idea is we're tokenizing these wines. So we're basically creating digital corks, so unique NFT, a digital twin for every unique bottle of wine, in order to power a transparent and unified marketplace. Because right now there is no global marketplace for wine. So this is kind of where provenance meets liquidity. And it's funny because wine is liquid, but it's very illiquid, turns out, as it is now. So so that's kind of what we're solving at dVIN. And we're talking about I think was it one of your articles, Dave, that was from Bordeaux to blockchain? It's
Bordeaux to blockchain.
Bordeaux to blockchain. That's what we're doing.
It's a little bit of alliteration. It's a little thing called alliteration, Jana.
Thank you. I'm always learning. with Dave. So fun. Okay. Anyways, this is an AMA. This is not a let's.
Yeah, it's
not on. I hope you guys know us a little bit by now if you're here. So we had a couple questions.
First question is for Jana.
Oh God.
And that question is, when is the fine wine market expected to recover? From Ruminant Cow on Twitter.
I love crypto Twitter. Well, you know what? Let me give I know we kind of just did the intros and everything. If Ruminant Cow, if you're I love calling you that already, Ruminant Cow. If you are watching this, and I hope you were entertained by Bacchus's answer. Bacchus is our AI kind of Bloomberg terminal for wine. And I see that he answered you and said, buddy, first of all, calling you straight out with the tude. You're asking when the market recovers like it's a flu. This isn't, oh God, Bacchus, you were such a sassy little shit. This isn't a fever, structural reset. Bordeaux and Burgundy are bleeding out, down nearly 3%, while Italy's sipping Negronis in the sun with a 0.4% dip, and Masito flexing a 1.71 bid offer. That's not a market crash, that's a reshuffle. Oh my God, he really goes on. You want recovery? Watch the On Premier campaign. Yes, we talked about this yesterday. I did a live Wine Wednesday session yesterday at the same time with Jane Anson, and we really got into this kind of market reset. It was a fascinating conversation. Jane's one of the absolute top authorities when it comes to Bordeaux, but wine in general. Jane is just an incredible journalist, and she's been, she worked for Decanter for I think over 20 years. She's the one, they sent Petrus. They put some of the rarest, most expensive wine on earth on a rocket and sent it up to space. And when they brought it back down, they called her and they were like, hey, we want to know if you can taste the difference. Anyway, did a live session with Jane yesterday and it was awesome. And we talked a lot about this like market recovery and kind of reset thing. So the 2024 on Premier is definitely interesting to take a look at. So a lot of the chateaus kind of read the room well, and you know you'll see a real kind of price correction there. So some of the top first growths came down 20-25%. I think Cheval Blanc actually. So you know not a first growth, but Cheval Blanc. I think they put the prices down 30%. So yeah, real market reset for sure. But you know there was there's been a big market correction. So I think it's really interesting to keep an eye on the 24 vintage now, especially from the big names, because it was a difficult vintage. Take a look if you've got a few minutes, get into either the Substack that we sent out today, where we do kind of a summary of that episode, or watch it back on X if you're really interested in digging into the market and that kind of exact topic. Take a look. But yeah, it's an interesting time to be looking at the 24 on Premier for sure. What do you think, Dave?
Yeah, I mean, here's what's funny. I I've been following the Silicon Valley Bank
Mm,
annual report every year for, I don't know, 20 years. And the last couple of years they've really talked about, you know, this reset that's happening in the industry. And what they've said over what the trend that's been happening over the course of the last few years is not necessarily that the whole wine market is crashing. It's that the higher end wines, the more expensive, the more unique, with interesting storytelling, with you know, the wines that are on the higher end of the price curve,
mhm.
that's actually growing, even in the US, growing and doing well. Where it's hurting is typically in the more, well, certainly in table wine or less expensive wines. The cheaper the category, the more it's getting hurt. But then also in some of the traditional brands, and that we think that really is because of the generational shift that's happening. I think that, you know, you're starting to see, and as Bacchus so wisely points out, you're starting to see like this shift happening. Younger brands that are reaching out and you know, attracting a younger audience versus brands that have sort of, you know, rested on the boomer wine consumers or wine collectors for the last 20 years. Um, I think what you're seeing is um, a shift to innovation versus a shift to quality, or price. I think it's a shift to innovation, and on the higher end side, and it's a very narrow band, right? Like typically, the wineries that are the most expensive, the most traditional, the most investment grade, are the ones that are the most reticent to change, right? They're the most reluctant to want to change. So it's that little band in the middle, you know, wineries that are investment grade, have proven themselves, have a great track record, but have also made the changes to appeal to a younger, more, you know, a younger demographic that's more interested in transparency, more interested in direct connection with the producer, more interested in experiences, more interested in storytelling, and
Cult
especially direct
wines,
storytelling.
that's a
Yeah,
good example. Like the
yeah,
cult wines in Napa. I mean, Napa's kind of figured it out. But yeah.
yeah.
Okay. So
Next question.
yeah, where are we here? When
TGE.
and
Lots of
listen.
people asking about the TGE, and I totally get it, and they should be, and that's fine. What I'll tell you is this: we're ready. Like, we've done all the homework. As kind of everybody can see, we've been piling up assets, whether it's on the community side, on the thinking side, on the partnership side. We're we're in line to tokenize $150 million worth of wine in the next 12 months. Like, we have all the pieces together. I don't I have been unable to see a successful launch. I, I have trouble seeing a launch in the last 6 months, honestly. Some of them were successful in the beginning, but I haven't seen anything that has shown me a path to a path to say the market is ready for a project like this to launch. I haven't seen it yet. We're ready to push the button as soon as the market's there, and as
Yeah.
soon as there's a roadmap, but it doesn't exist right now.
I actually kind of like Bacchus's answer on this. So this question was asked by Ari Mohammed 160, and Bacchus so sassily responded, "Buddy, you're asking the wrong question. TGE and listing are just the foreplay. Real action starts when the liquidity hits the paper hands vanish. Stay sharp." Yeah, Jesus, I get such a kick out of this guy, this Bacchus, this guy, our AI. Yeah. And it's the same thing. We know we've had a couple questions about Earn, so we'll address that as well. It's we are a blockchain company, a crypto. We have a native token, and we sometimes you got to pivot. And if the market's not right, then the market's not right. And like I don't know how many projects I was mining Pi for like 5 years, and when they finally launched token, I made like really good money on that. Actually, by the way, I was telling Dave about it today. He was like, "What's you never got involved in the Pi network thing, did you, Dave?"
Is it Raspberry Pi?
Oh, that sounds good. No. Anyways, no. But anyway, it's just, you got to pivot sometimes, and you got to read the room and make sure the timing is right. And so I would just say, if you guys are into Earn, like stay in there. The airdrops will come when the TGE comes, but you just got to bear with us.
And there's fun and cool stuff coming.
Yeah.
Like get engaged,
Get
learn a
engaged.
little bit about wine,
You
learn
got
a little bit about wine trading in the interim.
yeah. And you've got plenty of time to rack up the airdrop when it comes. But
And also, we're not just sitting around.
yeah.
Right? Like we're adding assets that are going to contribute to the FTV when it launches. So, like we've decided that the right course of action for us, we're a real project with real world physical assets,
Yeah.
like real physical stuff. So we're not we're not in a rush. I just worry that the last 6 months has really been about meme coins, and it hasn't really created an opening for a real project. So we're going to do this when it makes the most sense. So I appreciate everyone's time, and I appreciate everybody's patience. And there's just going to be more and more cool stuff that we're launching, and you're going to have plenty of notice when the TG happens.
Have patience. We are, yeah.
What's next? Let's talk about the utility of VIN coin and which blockchain will it be listed on. And also, then I guess they need a new Discord invite link. I'll talk to our Discord folks about this. This is from Official Benny.
Yeah.
So let's talk about, you want to talk about VIN utility?
Gas for wine.
There we go. What does that mean, Jana? What does gas for wine mean?
So it means that it's like the core transaction engine for the entire wine industry on chain, which means it's going to power all the transactions on the dVIN protocol. So it's kind of like, you can think of it as like the how ETH powers Ethereum, VinCoin will power the wine industry. So it'll be used for paying trading fees and accessing data and settling smart contracts and things like that. Now that's the kind of the core. And then of course, you've got governance and protocol control and rewards and access and ecosystem incentives. And yeah, there's lots.
There's a lot of stuff. So think about it this way, right? Like what we're building is an ecosystem. We've built the universal protocol for all wine, for the digital deed of ownership or the digital product passport for every bottle of wine in the world. And lots of things happen with those bottles, right? Think about like the two main things that happen. One of those things is those bottles change in ownership, right? The bottle is owned by the winery when they produce it, and then they sell it to a negociant, and then the negociant sells it to an importer, and the importer sells it to a distributor, and the distributor sells it to a retailer, and the retailer sells it to a consumer. And that happens over a period of years, right? Every time that that ownership change happens, with those bottles that are on chain, there's a fee that gets paid to dVIN. That's the gas fee, right? Just like, every time any NFT changes hands. So we'll earn, so the VIN coin will be gas for those transactions. But then there's another important thing that happens. And when you think about what is dVIN protocol about, what's our special sauce? Our special sauce is that we track both chain of ownership and also chain of custody. And those two things are not the same.
Yeah.
Right? Like, a bottle, let's say winery, let's say Chateau Palmer, right?
Custodian, the initial custodian.
Chateau Palmer is the initial custodian. Let's say I buy a future from Chateau Palmer, right? I buy the future, and I own that bottle, but the custody of that bottle is still with Chateau Palmer. It's still at the winery. But then the winery might send that bottle to Bordeaux City Bond because they're out of space at the winery. I still own it, but the custody has changed.
Yeah.
Right? And now it's sitting at Bordeaux City Bond, but I sell that bottle to Jana. So now Jana owns it. There's been a change in ownership, but the custody stays the same.
Yeah.
And now Jana decides that she wants to have the bottle shipped to her.
So that I can put it in the back seat of my car in the sun at Walmart. Is what Dave
exactly
always
right.
says when we do this example.
I always say. So that bottle goes to Jana, and now the custody has changed, but the ownership stays the same. Well, so we track both things with the digital cork, and so with the network token, we're earning fees every time the ownership changes, just like any NFT sale, right? Like any sale of anything, like we earn the gas. But we also track chain of custody. And every time that custody changes, we also earn fees. And in the long run, that's a DePIN, right? A decentralized physical infrastructure network, a DePIN. And what that is think about like an RFID sticker on each bottle and RFID readers in, decentralized network of RFID readers all over the world that are tracking the bottles all the way from the winery to the consumer. And every time that bottle checks in with a warehouse or a temperature controlled truck or a temperature controlled shipping container, that's tracking not only the location of the bottle, but also the temperature and humidity conditions in order to make sure that that bottle is still hasn't spoiled and isn't sitting in the back of Jana's car at Walmart.
There we go.
Then, and every time that happens, every time that bottle checks in, and every time the blockchain is updated with the location, temperature, and humidity of that bottle, that's another way that the VIN token is going to earn fees.
Yeah.
So, like, there's really two different ways. Interestingly, because it's a physical product, we earn network fees in ownership changes and in custody changes.
It's a big play, guys. It's a big play. Yeah. What about DeFi and financial utility?
Well, yeah. So that's another big piece. So, and again, I'll talk about this, and then I think we have to wrap it up.
Yeah.
We've been going for half an hour.
Yeah.
So I'm going to talk about this piece and say this actually, I put something in LinkedIn today. Sorry, I posted in LinkedIn. I'm old, and that guy. But really interesting when you think about smart money. There was a book that just came out called Smart Money. I don't have it on my desk, but that talks about like stable coins and like why digital currencies, why that makes sense. And it's really easy to talk about when you think about wine. So the typical B2B transaction in wine is a little winemaker in France sells 5 cases to a little importer in Norway, right? Like, that's the typical transaction. That transaction's like $5,000. And that's an incredibly risky and incredibly expensive transaction.
Yeah.
Because the importer, how do I know you're going to send me the wine? And the
Winemaker.
winery says, how do I know you're going to send me the money?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then let's say that all happens, but the guy from the importer in Norway sends a bank wire to the winery and pays a what, €15 fee for the bank wire.
Yeah.
And then the
And he's getting the
winery has
worst.
to convert the
Yeah.
currency. And then there's usually what, a 3-4 day settlement window.
Yeah. So the settlement is insane, but also we calculated this, and it's actually we worked it out that it's basically the first glass of wine that you pour from every bottle that goes to the bank.
Yeah. And that's insane,
Yeah.
right? It's super, super expensive, and it doesn't need to be that way. If you could create a smart contract where you're using digital currency to make that transaction, then
That
there's
sounds like
no
smart money, Dave.
there's smart money. There's no risk. There's your fees are negligible.
Yeah.
You're getting, instead of the worst FX rate, you're getting the best FX rate, and the settlement is instant.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden that first glass now can go to the consumer, and you just save billions of dollars a year on millions of transactions, and you're saving billions of dollars a year.
It's a lot. It's a lot. But we dig into all of this stuff in Dave's putting out really great long form articles on Medium every Sunday. We dig into all of this kind of stuff. If we haven't already written a white paper on it, Dave loves writing white papers. Dave writes a thorough article, guys, and we'll break it down in the shorter form for socials and for the Substacks that I put out. But yeah, there's a lot to dig into with this, and keep bringing your questions to these. We're going to do these every 2 weeks. We are going to wrap because it's been 36 minutes.
There's one more question
Oh yeah.
in Twitter, and I just want to kind of address it really quickly.
I didn't
So,
see it.
so Doc Blue asks, how much of the business is focused on the tokenization of investment grade wine for the sake of facilitating trade and collecting versus marketing and rewards programs for fine wines? Are you working on both business models concurrently or primarily focused on the first one? If both are being pursued, is that in different stages? So yes, we're pursuing both, and definitely in different stages. So when we first kind of looked at, for the last few years, we've been working on this business and kind of thinking, what is the best way for us to get to critical mass? How do we get the largest amount of wine on chain and trading,
Yeah.
in order to get to, like I said, get to a critical mass? And at first, we really thought that the loyalty program and using wine and using VIN coin as loyalty points and tokenizing for customer acquisition loyalty was the best use. And what we found is that there were pieces of the market that still there were gaps in the supply chain that were going to cause us problems. And in order to close those gaps, we really needed to focus on building trading platforms first. So the first thing that we're doing is investment grade wine. That's where the that's where you have the worst liquidity, right? It's a $300 billion asset class that only trades $10 billion a year. So like there's tons of frozen liquidity there, and we can have real benefit right out of the gate,
It's like
without
hyper
having
scalable.
to bring in a lot of the rest of the supply chain.
Yeah.
But as the supply chain starts to be added in, you'll see more and more use cases like authenticity, loyalty, DeFi, lending and credit. There's just so many different things that you can do once the bottle is tokenized, and once you're actually able to track ownership and custody.
Yeah. Nice.
All right.
I didn't see that question. Dave, you've got
It just popped up.
Oh, good.
I'm watching the Twitter.
Hey, you know
I'm
what?
checking out the tweets.
This is how we get Dave on Twitter. I like
Yeah.
it. All right. Well, it's all right. Be sure to check out Dave's LinkedIn too. He's got
Oh, geez.
lots going on LinkedIn.
All
All
right.
right. Let's wrap
Thanks,
it.
everybody.
Cool. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you in 2 weeks at the same time. And be sure to tune in next Wednesday at this time. And we'll be doing another Wine Wednesday. Bring a glass. Thanks, guys. See you, Dave.
Salud. Bye.